Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Monday, March 30th. This is AP Stats. Today I'm going to review the homework problem, which was on page 656, number 40. It's already started on the board, so let's put it together right now. We were given a prompt where we were asking, customers of a certain bank whether they felt that reliability was an important trait in the bank, and they were breaking it down by the language that the customers preferred, whether it was English, making them Anglos, or whether it was Spanish, making them Hispanic. And we got the following data. Of the 92 people who said they chose English, they scored the importance of reliability on a 10-point scale with an average of 6.37, standard deviation of 0.6 points. Very consistent. Those who were Hispanic and chose the Spanish language, there were 86 of them, they scored reliability as a 5.91 on a 10-point scale with a standard deviation of 0.93. So the question here is there a significant difference between the two? Now, we were looking for, in this prompt, confidence interval at the 95% level for where we felt the difference between the two populations would fall in their preference for reliability. All right, well, question part A says the distribution is distinctly non-normal, but T procedures are still safe to use. The question, of course, why? All right, well, what's the condition we always use for normality when we know we have a non-normal population? Well, it's that three-tier criteria. Population normal? No. Sample size at least 30? Well, yeah. So the answer to part A is that both of the samples are at least 30. So both N, I'll say N sub A and N sub H are at least 30. That's enough right there to tell you that we can normalize the sampling distribution based upon this sample data. We don't have to worry about the normality condition at that point. Okay. Part B asks you to make the confidence interval, so go through the whole procedure. First thing we have to do when we're doing part B is check the conditions. Some of you guys still not really checking the conditions all that reliably. So what are the conditions we have to verify? Well, let's see. We're talking about means. So for A and H, Anglo and Hispanic, we're looking for whether we have an SRS. We're checking the 10% rule. And when we have to do the normally distributed criteria. So is it normal? If not, do we have at least 30? If not, is there any strong skew or outlier in the sample distribution? The SRS, well, that was given to us. I believe it told us in the sample that we have a random sample of customers. 10% rule is the population of all people who speak English at this bank at least 920. That's a pretty safe assumption that we can come across 920 English speakers who choose to use this bank. And what about the Hispanics? Is the population of all Spanish-speaking customers at this bank at least 860? Again, obviously, if it's important enough for them to make this kind of survey, and if their sample size was roughly split nearly in half, I think it's a safe bet. Normally distributed, no, we were told it was not. But we already verified there's 92 who chose English and 86 who chose Spanish. Those certainly qualify, meaning we don't worry about the skew. We couldn't answer that anyway because we don't have the data. You would never say there's no skew or strong outlier, no strong skew or outliers in the data if you don't have the data. So we can't answer that part of the criteria anyway. So luckily we didn't have to. Okay, so I need to make my confidence interval. We already understand, I hope, the formula for confidence interval is what? Well, let's see, we have x bar sub 1 minus x bar sub 2 plus or minus critical t times the square root of s sub 1 squared over n sub 1 plus s sub 2 squared over n sub 2. Okay, we had that the last two videos, so hopefully we're comfortable with this now. We have to plug in the values as we see them. So I get, in this case, 6.37 minus 5.91 plus or minus. What's the critical t-score? Remember, we have to use inverse t to find critical t. Inverse t asks for the area. Well, there was a 95% confidence interval, so 1 minus 0.95 over 2, which is 0.025. And then the degrees of freedom. I told you that we have to use the conservative estimate for degrees of freedom. Actually, there's three different things we could do. The conservative estimate, which is the smaller sample size, minus 1. We could do the ridiculous formula, which I told you was on page 640 of the textbook, which we're not going to do, but the calculator does. Oh, my cat is attacking the stand for the camera. Or we could do what we would have done in the olden days when we actually used a table called a t-table, and we have to look for the degrees of freedom that best match the table. In this case, it would have been 80. Don't worry about it. We're not using the table. What should we get as a critical t-score? The answer is 1.9883 times the square root of 0.6 squared over 92 plus 0.93 squared over 86. Well, if you do the math out carefully and correctly, you get 0.225 to 0.695. That's our confidence interval. Part C was to explain it, so let's just talk about it now. I am not going to write everything up on the board, but I'll say it slowly enough that you can understand or pause and rewind. We are 95% confident that the true difference in the importance of reliability between people who chose English versus people who chose Spanish is between 0.225 points and 0.695 points. Now that is pretty close, pretty narrow. And yes, the cat did attack again. What's not contained on that interval? The number 0 is not contained on that interval, which would, again, tie into the hypothesis test, which we're going to do next time, which would follow the same protocol as proportions. When 0 is not on the interval, it does indicate that there is something significant about our results. In this case, it's an entirely positive interval, which would indicate that the people that spoke English chose reliability as a higher level of importance over those who chose the Spanish language. And I would also point to the difference between them. It's very, very narrow. So it might not be practical, but it is significant. All right, well, that will be the answer. Now, if you had done the calculator's double check, you would have found it used 143.6936 degrees of freedom, which, again, I said, it uses basically a little bit less than the sum of the two sample sizes. The formula is complicated. Don't worry about it. But even with the complicated formula, it came up with an interval of 0.22637 to 0.69363. We're really very close to the same answer. And our answer, being the conservative estimate, is fine, and it's actually easier. All right, now, quick notes about your AP exam this year. I don't know if you read the updates or if you heard anything about it, but here's how College Board is adjusting for our current issues with distance learning and the lack of, let's say, cohesive curriculum. The test this year will be online, number 1. Strictly online. Even if we're back in school, it's still going to be online. The test this year is only 45 minutes long. That's a pretty substantial cut in the length of the test. The test this year is only open-ended. They did away with the entire multiple choice section. It's strictly open-ended. Now, that's actually a good thing, because I don't know if you guys are familiar with your tests this year, but you did much better on open-ended, usually, than you did on multiple choice. We had a higher proportion of success on open-ended. That might actually play in your favor. So, those three things. And also, the amount of the curriculum has also been cut to 75% of what it usually has. Those are units 1 through 7 as outlined on College Board, which basically means when we're done with this chapter, we're done. Personally, I'm going to teach you the other unit. We have the time. We're not behind. We're actually a little bit ahead of where I was last year. However, I'm going to teach you the final chapter, and there's a really good reason for it. It's very important, and for the majority of you that will take some variety of statistics in your college career, you'll have an easier time if you already understand Chapter 11. What I'm going to do with Chapter 11 is I will teach it, and I will quiz and test you, but they will be, let's just say, wouldn't call them optional, but they won't hurt your grade, put it that way. If they improve your average, they'll count. If they won't improve your average at that point, then I'm just going to call them dropped grades, and it won't count against you. Because, again, it's not essential for AP this year. It really is essential for statistics, and I do want you to know them. So I'm going to teach it. I'm still going to expect you guys to watch the videos and do the work, but I'm not going to hold the same level of rigor on the tests or quiz. Okay? The date. We don't know yet. They're pushing off the date. They sent a survey out as to what we'd like, but they'll tell us, they said on Friday, April 3rd, they'll let us know what the new schedule is. There'll be 2 dates offered, and because it's online, you could take whichever one you want. Some students might want to test earlier because the information is still fresh in their heads, and some might want the extra time or need it. So they're going to leave that up to you. But on Friday, they'll tell us the 2 dates that they've chosen. All right? That's our update. That's our review. I'm not giving you any additional homework today. Congratulations, you got off without any homework. I'm going to try to get your quizzes graded. I got those tests obviously graded. Please take a look at them. Those who posted them to the classroom, I did corrections where I could. Other ones, if you have questions, like I said in the classroom notification, let me know and I can call you. We can have one-on-one conversations. I can walk you through whatever you did wrong. It's not a problem. It's perfectly fine. After all, I miss you anyway. All right, that's all I got. Have a great day.